All right, it's 4 o'clock. We have a quorum. Let's call our meeting to order. FinCom meeting, the 4th of February. I don't think we have minutes. Any public comment? Seeing a vast audience of people in the public. Allie, do you want to say something today? So we're kind of in many ways, I feel very guilty about asking you all we're not canceling this meeting because we're literally there's not much we can do because we haven't had our public hearing on the warrant. And until we do that, we really can't take up any of the items. So
I've forgotten when the public hearing is.
it is next week. It's on the 12th, which is Tuesday.
Tuesday, yeah.
Hi, Joanna. So, that said, I thought we would, there are some decisions we can make about how we go forth from this point. Confirm who we want to show up. And I assume Brian's going to come at some point, right?
He is supposed to be coming.
Okay. And then one of the things I wanted to talk about was how we wanted to tackle both the Nantucket Inn discussion, which I've booked in for the 21st.
Okay.
Partially at the request of the people that are involved with it, and partially to give us enough time if we have further questions and clarifications so we actually can get them and hear them before we have to render an opinion. So one of the items for the committee to make a decision on is, since we've also not heard on the Tobias Gooden, Rick Atherton article in any detail, well, we heard some, and then we sent them away to come back with additional information, is the question of whether we want to combine those two articles and do it on the 21st, or if we would like to have Tobias here tomorrow, and that's when he was originally scheduled to be here, and go through his article and do the Nantucket Inn on the 21st, and potentially also have a discussion about how the two articles fit together on the 21st.
Are they talking to each other now?
Yes.
Are they going to get to a conclusion on their own?
Well, that's a good question, and what I wrestle with, which is if we do them together, are we just going to end up with a public policy discussion on the 21st? Or if we separate them out and do Tobias, we'll be able to get our financial questions at least asked, answered maybe to our satisfaction, maybe not. We could do Nantucket Inn and go through the same drill. And then we would have that information that we could, on the follow-on with the Nantucket Inn, have the discussion on the 21st. One way to look at it.
Do we have a sense that if the Nantucket Inn moves forward, Tobias is going to withdraw his?
Our town manager just arrived. Good to see you.
You as well? Sorry.
Don't worry.
Could I make a quick note? Everybody make
Yep,
sure your mics
I just
are
noticed
on.
that.
Oh,
Thanks.
It doesn't sound like.
So, I was getting very frustrated Wednesday night when I was watching it, so I actually turned it off before a decision was rendered. But maybe somebody on our board knows, or if not, we can ask Libby what the...
So there was a lengthy discussion. Tobias and Rick were both there. They both expressed concern that if the board went forward with including on the warrant the Nantucket Inn proposal, and I think Matt Fee shared the same concern that Rick and Tobias did, which is that you could confuse voters. Putting two things forward might mean that both fail. But ultimately, the board decided that it would be better to put both issues on the warrant and both on the ballot, so that voters at town meeting can choose either path that they want to move forward with, and then have already on the ballot the measure for the funding. So that's what the board decided to do.
But they didn't think it was an either-or situation?
Well, I think that most people did think it was an either-or situation. It is possible that voters decide they want to do both, but I think most people were of the mind that it would be either-or. But if they did not, if they only put the Nantucket Inn issue on the warrant and not the citizens article, which Libby pointed out a couple of times, it's not customary for citizen warrant articles to be placed on the ballot before they've been adopted or before a town meeting has said that's what they want to do. But the board did put both on the ballot and both on the warrant so that voters can choose which path they want to go down and then be able to take the second step shortly after town meeting.
So then, David, I have a question for you. Are you of the opinion that the finance committee will support one or both? Or how, like, or do you have an opinion about what the best path of that is?
It's up to the committee as to what they want to do. We will have to render an opinion, yay, nay, or limbo.
I mean, in theory,
On
we
both.
could approve both or vote, support both, and leave it to the voter.
Yeah, I think the comment's going to be especially important
just
on both
interested
of these
in-
articles.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
too.
I'm still totally unclear about what the Nantucket Inn proposal is. I mean, we have some idea of what the acquisition cost might be, but, who could say what the cost is going to be to upfit the building to its intended use before we identify even a range of what the uses might be? Or what the ongoing cost might be for managing? Or what the savings might be, for reallocating some municipal uses to that building. Maybe there's savings, but we don't know any of those things yet.
I mean, it sounds like different kind of housing, between the two.
It's a very different program.
Yeah.
Well, different type housing might be at Nantucket Inn, but, there's also the opportunity that there would be other municipal uses that could be,
Right.
and any number of things, but we don't know.
Well, no, it seems like certainly a worthwhile thing to explore and understand.
Well, I
Because,
put that in the
buildings,
category of anything is worth exploring.
right.
But
I mean, property like that doesn't come available on Nantucket on a regular basis.
no.
So the conversation we've now fallen into is what I'm afraid will happen on the 21st if we try to do these both at the same time.
Right.
And that's what mindful that we have an impact on how people view policy, but that our responsibility is as a fiduciary. I personally would really like to see us scrub Tobias's proposal and scrub the Nantucket Inn, independent of whether this makes good public policy or not.
By
Okay, so that
scrubbing,
we-
you mean evaluate it,
Evaluate.
not just draw a line through it. Because scrub to me means you draw a line through it and we're done. Just making sure
I
we're,
thought we had the same boss at one time.
that's why I asked about scrubbing.
I thought if there was an appropriation, you had to have it ready for the ballot. We don't do that because it's a citizens article? Is that by law or is that by just?
No, only the Board of Selectmen can put a ballot question on the ballot. And as Steve said, that has not been our practice, to put citizen ballot questions on
Before it's been adopted.
before it's been adopted. And even then, it would still be up to the board. But it
Right.
would get political, but it's still up to them whether or not to put it on.
When does it have to go on the ballot?
It had to, right?
Well,
Already?
it had to already in order to meet all of the
Notice.
printing and notice criteria. Actually, we had a little bit more time to do that, but they wanted to adopt the warrants as one document. The alternative would be you have a special election at a later time.
So if it gets voted down at town floor meeting and is still on the ballot,
Irrelevant as to what happens to it.
okay,
It won't matter if it passes or fails. It can't, action cannot, it needs both votes.
Okay, thank you.
That seems kind of inefficient, though, in the philosophy that a special election has to be held just to, whereas we could have just put it on the ballot
Well,
regardless.
Well, it is on the ballot.
In this case, we don't need to. They
made
did
it.
put it on the ballot.
Yeah, it's on the
It's on
ballot.
the ballot.
Oh, okay, I thought you, I'm just,
No, typically you
forward.
wouldn't put it on the
Ballot.
ballot, but in this case, they did. They thought it was a special circumstance.
and they have the determination. So even if it passes at town meeting, the selectmen can still say, we're not gonna go forward with a ballot?
No, they
No,
put
it's
it on
too
the
late.
ballot. It's too
No,
late.
no, I'm talking about what the philosophy
For
she said.
something
The
else.
Yeah.
selectmen can still have
Yeah.
a chance to say no.
Yeah, if it hadn't been on the ballot, yes.
So a vote doesn't mean anything. Just
Well,
trying to
I-
get this town
I
government
get-
stuff straightened out.
I wouldn't go quite that
sense-
far.
no sense being here.
Cliff,
We would
but,
miss you if you weren't here.
you know,
I meant the people.
But it is sort of, can't think of the right.
Yosarian-like.
Yeah, I mean, it is sort of disturbing when you think about it. I mean, two articles, both looking to appropriate on the order of $30 million, where the details of sort of the business arrangement and what actually is going to be done with the money are either, in the case of my sense, in the case of Rick and Tobias's, not terribly well developed, or in the case of the other one, just a lot of unknowns as to what you're going to do with this property.
Jammed with time, by time.
So are we gonna get some kind of a spreadsheet that shows the financial impact to the tax rate, or what it might cost to do maintenance, or what the plan for the, so, all right, let's talk about this separately. On a $30 million article from Tobias, we're gonna get any kind of written information?
Supposedly, and that's what we asked for, and I can't remember whether you were at the meeting or not, but when he was here in early January.
Yes, I was here.
Yeah, so he told me this afternoon that they had information that they would be bringing, and they're prepared to talk about it tomorrow.
Okay.
Whether
And-
it's satisfactory to the committee or not, that's a whole
Well,
other
because the
question.
question I would have to that is then, has it been vetted by Brian or Libby to make sure that the information would be accurate, so that we're reviewing accurate
I
information? Or
don't
it's
think
just their
it would
opinion?
necessarily be the case that
They
town
look-
administration would do anything with the citizens'
I
article.
think likely the only the only part of this that we're gonna get hard numbers on is if we spent $30 million, what would it do to the tax rate?
Okay,
I think anything beyond that, you know, in the out years, what are the costs gonna be?
It's gonna be blah,
Those will
blah.
be assumptions, those will be, you know, guesses, and who knows how informed they'll be.
now, on the $30 million, on the Nantucket Inn business, are we gonna see some kind of a pro forma?
I don't, based on just hearing what I have heard in public meetings, I don't think it would be possible to get a pro forma because we wouldn't have identified what the uses will be. And nobody will have had time to come up with,
I don't
you
know
know,
if I think
we won't
that's
have had time to contract with an owner's project manager to even guess what the cost might be to do what we want to do with the property. So, you know, I don't see how it would be possible to come up with a pro forma for the ongoing costs.
Where did the Nantucket Inn project come from? Was it, was it on the market?
It was not on the market. What I've heard is that some member or members of the Affordable Housing Trust had some contact with the owner. They heard through the grapevine that it might be available, and then there was direct communication.
So the Affordable Housing Trust is the driver on the Nantucket Inn project.
I think
I
isn't
just-
Poor
it-
Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
think
sorry,
it's-
I don't know why
No.
I'm directing this at you.
I don't,
He listened to it on, yeah.
you know, I don't think it necessarily is. I mean, on the one hand, maybe it is just because of the individuals that are involved, but I don't.
I'm just trying to
I don't think
clarify.
somebody sat in an affordable housing trust meeting and said,
Let's go after
This
it."
is a great idea, let's go after it.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I thought they were the,
Well, that's the challenge, because one of the people, at least one of the people in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund is
Is a
also
realtor.
a principal now in this transaction.
Right. So,
These are
But-
both big projects.
When you say principal in the transaction, are you talking about, who are you
Well-
talking about? You're talking about a member of the board who's,
Who may have some financial interest in the transaction.
Ah.
But who is stepped aside. I mean, I'm not,
Yes, that's my
no
understanding as
aspersion
well.
on.
yeah.
I think we have to view them separately. Period. It's
I
just
do
too
too.
complicated to try to think about. I think we have to have opinions on each one as a standalone.
And I think the board made that decision also. You know, when they decided
That
not
would be
to
my
try to work with the proponents, you know, with
preference.
Rick and Tobias to meld the two together, they made the policy decision that these are two separate ideas.
Right.
So let's
Evaluate
vet
them as
separately.
such.
Yeah.
Is that the sense?
Yeah,
Amongst
I
everyone?
agree.
You
I
good?
do too.
Yeah, it's just a lot of information and both of them beyond the acquisition, just seems to be there's repercussions of
Yeah. there's no
$30 million
information.
worth of purchases of homes, and there's whatever that hotel, motel, the first expense of it seems to be the cheapest part. Then it has to morph into something else. So, anyway,
I personally, it's not a very comfortable way to do business, but I think this is one of those things where the train is going to move in one direction or another, whether we're part of it or not. So
Well, I think there's a lot
so
of,
I think that we need to do as much as we can.
and there's a lot of information, right, to absorb, like what is the impact on the shy list, right? For either of these two projects, in what time frame? And what does it do to our goals in terms of affordable housing? I mean, the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which we've all discussed, like ad nauseum many times, their task is to figure out some sort of solution. We've given them money to come up with ways to subsidize affordable housing on the island. We do that.
Yep.
And we've complained that they haven't done a good job at it.
No, the dog caught the bus now.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to speak for them, but they have been spending a lot of time developing a strategic plan. They haven't quite come back to report out to you, I don't think, but they're very close to being able to do that. And so I think they would like the opportunity to.
You're absolutely correct, and they are to be applauded because this committee, amongst others, was critical of where they were, and I think they have worked
I do
very
too.
hard, and I think they've come a long way. So,
Okay.
all right, so it's agreed we're gonna do these separately. Ellie, I have a question. Logistics. We're scheduled to be at Comet.
Tomorrow?
No, on the 21st.
As of right now, there's still not anything else available.
Who's in either of these two rooms? Okay.
I can't remember exactly who's in them, but are you thinking reaching out to something?
Bartering, yeah.
Yeah. I can do that tomorrow.
So that's item number one. The second item would be if we have to be at Comet, would be to add another meeting on like the 19th of February and take the social services people. I think they should be ready, even though it's 2 days earlier than we agreed to. I'm anticipating that if we take the housing stuff, we're going to go through 2 hours on it pretty quickly. The first part devoted to just looking at the financial ramifications, and the second part of it, because both parties will be there, how this meshes.
I'm away on the 19th.
Okay, 20th, are you around?
I'm back. Yeah, I have. Let's see what else I have on the 20th. I think it's kind of busy.
So you're meeting tomorrow?
Yes.
Well, we're supposed to do real estate, and Tobias is going to be here tomorrow. So the goal would be tomorrow to go through the $30 million acquire houses article and listen and talk through their financials and
then I'm just looking at the going out of it, and then so your next meeting would be Monday? Or,
well, today's
that's
the
today.
4th.
no, Monday the 11th.
No.
We-
12th.
12th, when we do our
Public hearing.
That's the
public hearing.
So you're not meeting Monday the 11th?
No.
We're not scheduled to.
Okay. And then the 19th potentially. We're talking about that now, and then the 21st. meetings the week of the 25th, and then you're finishing up Monday the 4th, Tuesday the 5th.
Yeah,
I
we're
owe you-
fundamentally a week behind.
Yeah, I owe you a little report that I'm trying to get to on department comments about some, but not all of the citizen warrant articles, because there are some that don't really sound like they're gonna cost anything, but they are gonna cost something. So I just want to point that out to you.
Are we in agreement what you're gonna do? Because don't do unnecessary work for
I
us.
think Ally gave me, I haven't even looked, so far what you,
Voted on.
The bike law, I have, we were gonna get information on the Campbell, Sutton, Bartlett, Surfside from Burns.
I think you told us that last
Yeah.
time.
The complaints committee, and I wanted to hear from, I don't think we've formally heard from you on your conversation with John Brescher about the complaints committee.
Oh, right, yes.
And I've asked, there's an abutter on Washington Avenue in Nantucket that wants to come and talk, and I've notified Cohen that, and we're gonna try to do that tomorrow. So, Libby, I don't think there's a huge amount of work that
okay,
we would ask you to do. Is there,
I'll just give you what I just need to compile it is all. It's not a whole lot, like the bike article, the step sign thing, that's gonna cost something. That whale heritage thing, preliminarily, I'm told that joining that is $3,000 a year, which was mentioned in the article.
No, it's not.
There's some sort of littleish things like that, that we just need to know what we're getting into.
What's the impact?
The sense of the meeting then.
okay? So articles that I've got that we have to make decisions on, the Wanacomit rebudget, is that gonna be done and sent back to us?
Yes.
Do you have a time frame on that?
Let me talk to Mark tomorrow and see. Were you gonna try to meet with him and Alan, or were you gonna do that?
I have been communicating on a one-off basis with the metrics that I think they ought to be using. And I'm now hearing from their consultant.
Oh.
I don't know if we're gonna, I think we're there on debt coverage ratios and working capital, but
Let me reach out to him then tomorrow, and I will talk to him about the changes, but that would be a very quick fix, and we could have that to you this week to discuss next week.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we need to fix their budget because they're not gonna get the revenue.
Right. So we can, we can do that, yes.
Yeah.
And if you have a specific target in mind, if you can call me or send me an email with it too, and I can try to work that in, if that would help, or be fruitful to be able to get to.
Yeah.
Then we can do that.
So what I'm hoping that they will do is actually manage their financial part of their business and their rate setting to a set of metrics so that they maintain a reasonable debt coverage ratio working, there's a series of 3 or 4 metrics that seem to be pretty standard in the industry. I didn't make them. I mean, the ratios are pretty standard for running a business, but the actual numbers come from they actually come from a program out of the University of North Carolina that works with water utilities around the country, and they have metrics.
Cool.
And I think that my thought process was that if we could get the water company to agree that, and their board to agree that those are the metrics to run the company by, they can run their operation the way they want. Those are the financial metrics, and we wouldn't be having these discussions every year that they would agree that and we would agree that as long as they stay within those bounds, which, are either AA or AAA rated levels.
Yeah, because when I looked up during the budget presentation, when Mark was saying something about they had to have a full year in reserves. I looked on the website he referred to, and it does not say that. So,
So anyway, those are, if we could get them to agree to that, then the discussion that we've been having every year, I think would start to slip away, and that they would just run their business in a way that's both fair to the ratepayers as well as, fair to, to their business. So that's the goal. There are a couple of zoning articles, and I'm looking at Stephen, I don't know when they're gonna hold their public hearing. The planning board is gonna hold their public hearing on some of these, but I've noted that McClure wanted to talk swimming pools. We have to schedule him if we so desire to hear that. And then there was a covenant housing expansion. I think, Stephen, when we talked about this, right after our public meeting, that you had concerns that at least one of these was a increase in density, or would result in increase in density. It's the covenant program.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been the covenant program one. I think the covenant program article has to do with a home rule petition that we submitted, and then now we want to do it as an amendment to our bylaw.
I think it's something that Steve Cohen submitted.
Yeah.
It's the housing needs. It expands the.
Steve Cohen is 1/3 of the articles for the warrant. I did the math.
He's very busy.
He's very busy.
Well, there actually are two articles that deal with covenant, at least the word covenant shows up in them.
Yeah.
48, which is a zoning bylaw amendment.
That's the one.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, because there's another one further on.
Yeah, I think the one that you're talking about, David, that you've circled here is 60. That's not what I was talking
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, 60 looks like it's trying to create a policy or make a bylaw amendment that allows you to carve off more than one covenant lot out of a larger size, out of a 40,000 square foot or larger lot, right?
Yep.
And then the other one has to do with, the 48 has to do with some definitions that I don't entirely understand.
What's your sense on? And anybody else's, for that matter. We know Stephen looks at these much closer than probably the rest of us.
Right. 60 doesn't jump out at me as something that's going to increase density a whole lot. The larger lots tend to be higher priced, higher value neighborhoods. I don't see this as something developers are likely to latch onto as a way to make money.
Okay.
I mean, given that it's a citizen's article, I was sort of curious whether it's probably driven by an individual who's got a large lot and would like to carve off more than one covenant home. And a couple of these get used by families where the.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're talking about creating from a 40,000 square foot lot or larger. You're talking about creating 3 lots, and one of those 2 new lots has to be restricted in the covenant program, but both of those lots are restricted from having second dwellings. Right now, if you take a lot and you create through the secondary lot program, which is the sub-program of the covenant program, you can create a new lot. That covenant lot can actually have 2 dwellings, or the market rate lot can have 2 dwellings, but the total can only be 3. So theoretically, you may be creating the possibility for 1 additional dwelling, but there may be some nuance in here that actually doesn't allow for that, and maybe it's only 3 dwellings on the 3 lots. So it's a marginal increase in the number of dwellings. I don't think.
Okay. So
Again, I don't think it's a big deal.
right. So we won't, is everybody in agreement? We'll let the planning board do its
Yep.
thing?
Yes.
Okay.
We usually do.
Can I mention one little thing about the real estate article?
Yes.
I am getting the REAC group to give me their thoughts about, I think it's those Washington Ave
Yeah.
ones. Those were the only other couple of real estate ones, I think.
They're gonna be here tomorrow.
I'm not gonna have it by tomorrow,
That's
There's-
okay.
There's
but
We'll
I will
listen
have
to
it.
it tomorrow.
I think they're meeting they might be
They're
meeting
meeting this
tomorrow.
week,
Yeah, so I'll have it right after that.
but I've asked Cohen, and there's a woman,
There's 9 abutters to that lane.
yeah, and there's rights of way now across that land. And many of the abutters were never notified. I mean, they didn't know anything about the article, so. So I think we'll run a 2-track on that, Libby, so obviously your group's gonna meet and we'll talk with these guys tomorrow. Swimming pools, do people wanna hear about swimming pools?
I really don't want to.
Not really.
I mean, we heard what he had to say and all the opposition to it.
The question comes down to, though, is he gonna bring a crowd to the meeting and they're gonna get something passed like that?
Who's they?
His group,
Oh,
yeah.
Well, won't the planning board have an opinion on that article as well?
I would think so.
Does he
Oh,
have to
yeah.
recuse himself from that?
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the thing is if there's no, it's not grandfathered, so it's kind of punitive to anybody who already has a property that could have a swimming pool.
So now we're getting into reasons, why this might not be a good idea. I think we've said in meetings before that we give him an audience here. I mean, I think many of us have opinions on the article already, but we have said that he'd have the opportunity to come and represent the articles, so I think we should extend the offer again.
everybody in agreement with that position? Okay. Stretch energy goal, I've reached out to Andrew to find out whether there's ever been any discussion with the building commissioner department on this, and I've talked to Tobias about it, and I guess we have a new building person who's literally on the job for a week.
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And he came from his most recent, he most recently was the building commissioner in Dartmouth, and they have the green community, they're a green community, so he's familiar with what it takes.
So I think the question is, are we prepared to, given that there's a certification required on every building permit on new construction, are we prepared to absorb that in the time frame? And I guess, so my question to Andrew was, has this discussion taken place, and, or is this another one of those, sounds like a great idea, but we don't really understand the ramifications, and,
Exactly.
I can follow up with him on that. And you saw my email about the other,
Yeah. Why don't you, and I think maybe you emailed
the up to
everybody, but-
100,000, did I? Maybe I did email him, did I?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so,
It just, an anecdote relates to the Stretch Energy Code article. I'm renovating a house right now, and one of the line items that my builder gave me was HERS Rater, and it was only $375. So
There we go.
I might be getting it at cost because my builder's my brother. But even with the 200% markup, you're talking about $1,000. So, we're not talking about
It's not
a huge
onerous.
expense.
Right.
Yeah. Now there may be other things involved.
Isn't this called a teaser rate?
Yeah. Right.
Maybe they're just doing one room.
You have to recuse yourself on the vote now, Stephen.
Oh, jeez.
Yes,
Take a look and
Stephen.
see what he's charging
No,
for
no, no.
sheetrock.
He's not a HERS rater. I'm just telling
No,
you that
we're- yeah,
he's going to get a HERS rater to the project for $375.
Or maybe he's not.
Right. Or he's just billing me for things he's not doing.
There
How
you
would I know?
go.
All right. All right, so let's go back. So I think that we're going to hear Mr. McClure. We're scheduled to hear Tobias tomorrow. The 21st, we'll hear the Nantucket Inn. We're
And-
scheduled for the social services stuff on the 21st, but that would be something potentially to move up a day.
On the Tobias
two.
tomorrow, it's the 30 million, not the green again.
That's correct.
Okay.
And on the stretch energy goal, we'll wait to see what the building commissioner has to say. So is there a consensus to book in either the 19th or the 20th for a meeting? If we're gonna do the social services stuff, Denise, that's your
Yeah,
baby, so
I can't make the
19th.
19th.
I'd rather not do the 19th.
Can we do the 20th?
Yes.
Works for me.
I don't think so.
What time? Did we do it?
Can we do it at 4 o'clock? So on the 20th, would you just see if you could procure a, and that might be, we could go to the Wanacombat off, that's gonna be a small group.
Yeah, we may have to go to the walk company, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to get rooms.
Because also, we start setting up in here around 5:30.
Oh, that's right, it's Wednesday, isn't it?
We can talk to one comment and see.
You know,
We actually have a contract review committee meeting at 9 o'clock on the 20th. That day.
Does that suggest that that you still have business to take care of and you won't have the report ready?
That's exactly what that suggests. So the report we will have the report in draft before then. We have a CRC meeting next week. We then have another one on the 20th. It should be finalized by the 20th, but my experience of this committee is there's always something to be said, even once it's issued in draft and comments have been collected. Though I believe that by the time Dorothy comes to see us, it will be, that's why I think she was counting on the 21st, was if there was any changes, she'd have then the 20th to do it. So I can give her a heads up that she will have to be ready by 4 o'clock on the 20th, and that speak now or forever hold your peace on the 11th, if anyone has any changes.
Is there opportunity, instead of pushing it up, can we push it back to the next week?
that's what I'm looking at. The problem, I mean, I think that's school vacation week, and
Oh, yeah. I wasn't
Many
intentionally
people-
trying to miss it, but
many people we may have trouble getting a quorum that week.
You may.
I'm gone 4 days too.
And I mean, we're gonna cram a lot of stuff in 2 days, because the 4th and the 5th of March are the,
well, can we shift the time of our meeting on the 21st to be half an hour earlier? Or go later?
it's fine with me.
Rob's got one of his public info sessions in here at 6 back there.
So we can't go later, but we maybe could go earlier.
I could go earlier. I couldn't go later.
We're talking the 21st?
Yeah.
I can go earlier.
Yeah, works for me.
I can too.
Well, we're supposed to be over at Wanacombat on the 21st.
We can, so you don't even need to worry about 6.
Yeah, but we were gonna
Try to
see if in here.
See if we can move who's in here.
I think we should just try to do it on the 20th, instead of goofing around with the 21st, and just tell Dorothy that's what it's gonna be.
Okay?
And then because if I tell her today, then she can circulate the report and get everybody's comments back. I mean, my experience of the 2 years of her document is I change typos. I don't change anything else on it personally. There's 1 or 2 committee members who tend to have different comments, but those are also equally easily changed. So I think she could be ready for the 20th at 4 o'clock.
All right, so Ally, why don't we do a meeting on the 20th at 4 o'clock? And you start setting up when, Libby? 5:30 or 4:30?
4:30, sorry, 5:30.
5:30.
Right around.
All right, we'll be done.
Okay.
We'll be done by then.
I will email Dorothy.
Okay.
So the
4
21st,
o'clock. Okay.
we'll see if we can get this room anyway, like maybe. Otherwise, we're at Wanacombat at 4, or do you wanna move that up?
Well, if we can move social services, then basically all we would have then is the Nantucket Inn, and then probably a commingled discussion of the two articles.
Yeah, I'm just thinking, so Rob's, I don't know what his setup is. Probably want to set up like a quarter of his session, if we can get in here. So we'll decide.
Well, let's do it this way. If we can get in here, can we start at 3:30
Yes,
on the?
yes.
Sure.
No, but yes, Rob's got the 21st. Okay.
So we'll hold the water company for
Okay.
Deals are starting at 3:30 on the 21st?
Yes.
Meeting house.
Who's in Nantucket Inn this month?
So, final thing that I have, an invitation has been extended for us to either individually, in small groups, or as a posted meeting to tour the Nantucket Inn. Given that everybody's got different schedules, trying to do it as a committee is probably difficult. But what's the pleasure?
I'd like to try to get as many of us together and do
I
it
think
as a
it makes
posted
sense to do it as
meeting,
a
and we
group,
can
too.
share ideas.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
No, we need to hear
Comments.
the presentation obviously first.
Yeah, I think you want to see the facility before you do the
think so?
grid, yeah.
Now, when you go to the facility, you say you want to talk about it, but you really can't talk about things when you're looking at the facility.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless it's posted.
We would post it,
If we posted it, you could.
yeah.
Yeah, that's-
I'd post the
what I'd
meeting,
like to
So the public could come,
That's
Okay.
fine.
it's fine with me,
just to make sure.
Do you have some days and times in mind?
no. No, my schedule's like everybody else's, there's an awful lot.
Yes, I was gonna say the sooner I know. You
How many days' notice do we have to post? So 48 hours.
Oh,
So the earliest we could do this would be Friday.
okay, so this Friday.
And they stopped posting at the town clerk's at what, 2:00, the last acceptance of meetings to be posted.
So if you
can't-
posted at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, you couldn't do Friday morning.
You could,
Okay,
you need 48 hours.
all
from
right.
the time that you
So
plan it.
realistically, it's next week.
Well, not necessarily, because if you could, if you gave us times tomorrow and we could post it, then we could still post it and then we'll get,
Okay. Yeah, because today's Monday.
right.
Why do I think it's Wednesday?
I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean?
Have a good weekend, everyone. That's what I did last time I walked out of here,
Maybe
so.
move the Super Bowl to Saturday.
Yeah.
Fine.
Our suggestion. All right, well, given that good news that it's all Holy Monday.
Extra
Got an extra
time
day.
there.
Yeah, extra 2 free days.
Oh, dear.
Oh dear God, right. So let's,
I mean, Friday afternoon?
You are not meeting this Thursday, right?
No.
no,
Yeah, Friday afternoon would be good for me also.
It's good for me too.
and it's fine with me. I have a board call at 3 o'clock, so I'm good up until 3.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do-
How long might a tour take?
Now,
Well, can we do it book it for 1 o'clock?
I will.
Is that okay?
Yeah, let's try
We'll create
that.
an
Works for me.
agenda and we'll confirm with Tucker, because he'll probably want to go, and he has the contact at the, over there, so.
Right.
We will start work on that first thing tomorrow morning. We'll create an agenda and confirm that we can put it on the place, but yes.
So the person who called me was not Tucker to offer this, but they expressed a great deal of flexibility in being available.
So do we think this is like more than 50% going to happen at 1 o'clock on Friday? Because I have to switch a call, which I'm happy to do.
Yes, be
Yes.
bold.
Okay.
It will happen, it will happen. And we will post it, and if we, now what if we don't get a quorum? We can still do we
You
can,
can still do a tour, just don't talk about it. Don't say like, don't deliberate.
Right. And
even
ask
if it's less than 5, we can talk.
You can, no,
Well, we have 1, 2, 3.
if you have,
5,
a
6,
quor-
7.
if you have less than 5, I would just be very careful
No,
not,
I appreciate that.
I mean,
so
less than a quorum. You could talk about some stuff, but it just be careful.
Okay.
Let's
If
just
you have a
show
quorum,
up.
It's
you
too
can't.
scary.
Let's just,
I know.
let's
It's-
just
Love the
all go
carpet.
and talk about it
We
each
will all
thing.
go.
We'll
And,
do.
all
and
go.
we will post it as
Okay.
a meeting and a quorum, and if we don't have a quorum, I'll take on the responsibility of reminding people that they can't deliberate. Okay?
Are we just posting the location as one more?
Yeah, I don't,
I know if you're gonna scratch someone else.
no, I think we ought to meet, you mean at the chicken
Yeah,
box
yeah.
and
Take
for
the bus.
lunch?
And
For
then we'll
lunch
just
and-
go to Crosswinds, it's right across the parking lot.
Great idea, seriously.
Can we go to a different location afterwards without posting it?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, they have a ballroom, conference room, might be our future meeting room. Who knows? Let's test it out.
All right, so you guys have got that. So we'll shoot for 1 o'clock on Friday.
This must be riveting TV to those who are watching.
Really?
Be surprised though, you say certain things and you find out there are people watching.
Oh, absolutely, there are
God,
people
yes.
watching.
Absolutely,
I
because
know.
I get emails from them.
I know that, but I was just.
You'll get an email tomorrow. It is Tuesday.
Um,
Yeah, say, who's this
I
guy
make
making
my-
all the decisions? They
I'm-
don't know what it is.
I'll hear from my staff tomorrow, I'm sure. It was nutty. All right, so we're on the 8th at 1 o'clock.
Yep.
Good deal.
That was a big decision.
All right. Anything else?
Can I ask can we just flip back to the article thing so that I'm not taking up time when we're discussing them? If we are taking these separately and one passes and the other one doesn't, so say the Nantucket Inn doesn't pass, but Tobias's article passes and they're both on the ballot, right? Can Tobias's money then be used to buy the Nantucket Inn?
No.
Okay. So what, if the Nantucket Inn doesn't pass at the town meeting and on the ballot, it's, at the Nantucket, actually, at the town meeting, it's done?
Correct.
Correct, unless we have, yeah, you'd have to have another vote.
Okay. I just wanted to understand that.
But you still may get you will get a tally of votes on the ballot. It's just it's irrelevant.
Why was the answer so strongly no, that the $30 million can't be used for the Nantucket Inn? Wasn't that a topic of discussion with the board? Like, why don't we try to see if there's maybe a way to meld this article so that it would be flexible enough that it might be used for Nantucket Inn?
But it wouldn't be that way.
But they didn't do it.
This is the,
Well, the citizen would have had to assent to it, but that was at least up for discussion.
Well, it also, the way that would have to happen is either the board would have had to create its own article to work that in and put it on the warrant, or that potentially,
Could amend it on town floor, or?
well,
yes. oh,
I'm not
that's
even
right.
sure it would be within the scope, because I think his article doesn't really contemplate the purchase of a property like the Nantucket Inn, but that
Right,
may be,
it says existing housing.
yeah, I don't know if you can call it existing housing.
Right, no, that's fair. So,
Because I think this is,
You could
I think
amend it
this
on
is
the town
confusing.
Meeting floor, you might get away with doing that.
right.
I mean, we just got the opportunity to ask the questions, but I think in terms of having somebody vote for this on the town floor, being clear about how each of these things work and what money can be used for what thing is confusing.
I don't think it's that confusing. the money from one can't be used for the other. It's easy. But I do have a question
I'm looking
about.
forward to town meeting floor when you pipe in with that
When
answer.
I say that, like, come on, everybody, it's not that hard. No, I'm not. But really, I think there's enough time to get that message out. You either are for the 30 million for buying existing housing, or you're for the Nantucket Inn,
Or you're for both.
or you're for both. God help
Okay.
us.
Right.
So that would be,
I think your earlier comment, that our comment on both these articles is going to be more than a paragraph.
Yeah, I think we need to, if we identify as a committee a number of questions, and then whether they're answered or not, we can put that in the comment. That this committee has these questions which are left unanswered. I think that's important. But in regard to the scope of Tobias's article, I had an idea of how the town might spend money to get some houses on the shy list without actually purchasing and owning homes and managing them. And that's, spend some money on buying deed restrictions on properties from owners who already operate rental properties. How do we find out? Is it through town council or from Sarah Alger? How do we find out if something like that would be allowed under the scope of this article?
I can ask about that.
Okay.
Under Tobias's?
Yeah.
So instead of actually buying the whole property, you just find a rental property and buy
Buy
down.
an easement.
Yeah. Well, no, you buy a deed restriction.
Yeah, deed restriction, and you say also the owner has to do, whatever checklist of things are required to make the property shy eligible. And then once you've done all those things, we'll pay you X dollars per dwelling or X dollars per bedroom. And then we make a one-time payment, we get the property on the shy list, and then the town has no obligations in the future. And the property stays on the tax rolls, which I think is significant when
That
you're
is.
talking about the value of property.
Is there an update, Libby, on the,
Yeah.
because at some point in the last month, we discussed when the Richmond numbers would go on to the shy list, or Tucker talked about that, maybe the last time he was here. And he said could be as soon as March.
Yeah, I think that's.
Is that that's still valid? Hasn't been delayed? Okay.
Okay. Joe, would you update us a little bit on, you had a conversation.
Yeah,
I think
I had
we
a-
sent you, well, why don't you tell us what we sent you away to do?
Well, you were saying this when I said, what the hell is he talking about?
Do you remember now?
Yeah, no, well,
Coming back to him.
I spoke, John Brescher is the chair of the,
Government study group.
Government Study Group, thank you.
Yep.
And I did speak to him after our previous meeting regarding the
Complaints committee.
Complaints Committee. Thank you for filling in the blanks, Denise, you're doing great.
Thank you. I live to serve.
And the article last year was not voted on at town meeting. It was, I think, negotiated off the vote with an agreement that the Government Review Committee would study this particular issue of creating a complaints committee. John, did come back, when I spoke to him, said that they have reviewed it. Not in general, in specific, the sense was that it was a terrible idea, in large part because, as we discussed in our meeting, it would create a committee that had authority superior to the select board. I think that, having said that, I think they were going to continue to review it and come back with a more formal response. But given that they all felt it was not a particularly good idea organizationally or politically, I don't think it was high on their priority list. He also commented that he did speak to
Teresa. Williams. I'm helping you here, Joe.
Yeah, I know you're doing great. No, but I'm wondering. It was the lead partner at Kaplan Page.
Yeah, John Giorgio.
John Giorgio's firm. And the opinion, if that's Teresa Williams, because I can't remember the woman's name, but her opinion also was that this was basically creating a terrible precedent where you'd put this complaints committee out there that, in effect, would have the power to override you know, any decisions of the select board or the governmental structure of the town. So, I don't know. And if I could find my email that I wrote to you, I could see if I left out anything, but I think that's the basic message.
Would you like to tell us what's in the email?
No, I didn't see the email.
How do you know all
It's-
that, Denise?
Teresa Williams was the person who put forward the citizens article, so I gave you a name that was false.
Oh, that was, right, oh, right.
So,
It was Cliff's sister.
Correct.
so I guess the question that I had, just in general, was what is the path, the current path for resolving issues like this? Because it kind of seems like this particular case slipped through a bunch of spaces, and I don't even understand what the path for getting resolution to any type of issue like this is.
I think it's the courts.
Right.
But it does strike me as an unforced error on the part of the town, and in this case, the town government study committee, to not get back to somebody whose chief complaint is, there's nobody listening to me.
Right.
You know, I mean, that's just,
Right.
I understand that, like
Yeah.
all committees, they're comprised of volunteers and their docket is full. But,
This seems onerous.
you know, this came back for a second year because the proponent didn't get a clear answer to their question. And I think that's too bad.
It's a good point. It's a good point.
I would only weigh in and say I think there's, it's more complicated than that. So I think answers have been rendered.
Well, I mean, that's
So-
not what we just heard from Joe. We heard that they have given
Well-
an informal answer, and then it went to the bottom of their list.
Right.
And, you know.
But answers came from the school department.
Right, the answers have come from someplace else, but this is, you know, what this citizen thinks is their way to go. They've been told, if you want to change the way our government works, go to the town government study committee. They will tell you if this is going to go forward. And they rendered the same decision that I think I would have, which is, this is a bad idea. But go ahead and say that, you know. Come up with your formal response and say, this isn't good for these reasons. There will be no more heard about this.
Fair comment.
So the answer is just go to court with the town.
Well, I mean, if in this case,
That's
the,
really- that's
the,
tough. Do you raise money? Is it like a GoFundMe page for people?
I bet there is for,
Wow.
yeah, no, fighting City Hall is, as they say.
Well, you're not fighting City Hall. You're just asking for simple answers, or you're asking for your civil liberties to be fulfilled or something like that.
I think you're trying to overrule the town, so, I mean, that is fighting City Hall.
No, I think you're confused on the premise of our argument then.
I listened.
Okay.
Finally, we've taken no action on the ambulance transport fund. At some point, we're gonna have to do something there. Do we have an idea of whether we can find some money for this? One time, one-off?
Just chips away and what,
I,
We did, but it's going to set us up to never be able to stop bandits.
Right.
could it be set out that it is, well, there's a couple ways, I guess. One way is to do an override for this one thing, but that's gonna require what we talked about before, so it's an election at another time. If we have to dip into free cash, which is the only option right now, can't we say it's for fiscal 20 only?
Well, it would only be for fiscal 20, but
Yeah.
there's nothing preventing somebody from bringing it back again.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could have
I-
a comment or part of your motion that would say, we intend this only to be for one time.
either that or get an explicit, I mean, I'm not quite sure who the entity is that's,
Yeah,
you know,
so-
I mean, that's
yeah,
one of the
sounds like it's the- It's
challenges.
the hospital, but it's a
Uh,
little odd that, because it's a citizen article.
So can
well,
we
the
somehow?
hospital wants to get paid. And I guess I mean, they'll get stiffed on those bills, but also we're not now providing transport, so.
And so then we're gonna get stiffed on the bills. If the town were.
Correct,
getting
but
involved,
I mean-
to actually handle it, which I don't think they're suggesting that the town handles it. They're suggesting that they get paid to arrange it.
And that we try to figure out collectively as a community, try to figure out how we're gonna solve this problem. This problem doesn't go away just because nobody wants to. And, you know, you and I've had this conversation.
It
And I
was-
think Kevin Marshall, to the extent that he's speaking on behalf of Mr. Winters, is perfectly okay with the notion that it would be a one-off deal, understanding that they've got to figure out how they're going to do this.
That is sort of what I took away from when they came to your initial public hearing. I thought they both sort of were saying that.
And I've had a Kevin called me to talk to me about this, so I've had a conversation with him, and I said, you know, I think you might have one-time support, but this is not an obligation that in any way, shape, or form the town's going to take on. And I think we all feel that it's perhaps a responsibility of a different part of our community, but
I agree with Brian. Once it's funded, it's gonna get funded in perpetuity. I do not ever see the funding going away, no matter how we comment on it. So I just expect that if we decide to fund it, we will be funding it. Even
Well,
if we say, no, we're only doing it for fiscal year 20, and you have to fundraise, and the funds will not be available.
Well, next year, we can have it come under the Health and Human Services Contract Review Committee, and then we'll have the hospital asking for 200,000 for, how much was it? that
They asked for
this year?
245,000 this year.
So to be 245,000 plus this amount of money, and they'll get some percentage of that.
Yeah, but what they've come back and said is that they're going to actually cut services if they don't get the funding from us.
Well, then that'll all be a matter of public record, and the hospital will have to answer for that.
Well, the other thing is that as part of the RFQ process for there's a third possibility here, which is that I know that one of the people who have applied for the second license have offered to give that amount of money.
Oh, and the
But it hasn't,
marijuana.
yes, but it hasn't been, it hasn't been decided yet. So in the event that that happened, then that is a possibility.
As a contribution to the town, as part of
But
their.
earmarked specifically for that use.
Yes, for that use.
Interesting.
So,
I hear what you're saying. This may be one of those
Yeah. I
hope
mean,
that
I just,
the other would be to get a written commitment from them that they won't come back to the town. I mean, that
I
may
think
be-
that's not
But
realistic.
yeah, then you're gonna need the money next year anyway, with it, yeah.
I mean, just
I'm
to
not
ask them
saying
to
not
commit
fund
to
it.
not coming
I'm just
back.
saying
I
I
mean,
think
if
we
they
will be
if they can't
funding
raise
it.
the money, they're going to come back.
yeah, I'm not saying not to fund it. What I'm
Right.
saying is I
I
expect we
agree.
will continue to fund it.
I agree. It's just it's not in the right place. The funding's not coming from the right place.
Well, it should go under the contract review committee's review process. We're not likely to up that pot of money, at least not enough that it's gonna cover all this, so the money's gonna come from someone else. If it's not gonna come from the hospital because we're afraid they're gonna cut services, then it's gonna come from someone else. But it'll all be a matter of public record and at public meetings that somebody from the hospital is gonna have to come and say, we're not going to provide these services unless the town of Nantucket does it for us. And it's gonna come on the backs of Small Friends or Fair Winds or somebody else.
Which seems outrageous.
It does, but they're going to have to answer for that, and either the public's going to be upset about it or they won't be.
I mean, the reality is they can't access this money until after July 1st, right? So,
Correct.
After free cash is certified.
right.
It just sits as an accounts receivable. They just want to know they're going to get paid.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, we're going to let this one ferment for a little bit longer, but we're going to have to come to a vote on this as well. Anyway, anything else? people want to talk about?
That for me. Joe, do you have any other sentences you'd like me to finish for you?
No. I actually find the email. I'm trying to see if there's anything else I left out that was important. No. But thank you, Denise.
Joe doesn't have anything else either, David.
Thank you. All right, anything from you guys?
We're working on motions that we know, the routine sorts of ones, the ones that we've done.
Yeah. Do you, let us know if you want help on outreach.
Commercials made.
For outreach, we're having the departments and/or board members do short videos on all the debt exclusions. And we're getting our so-called big boards ready that will explain each one, on a big board. And I got a Rotary time scheduled, the Nantucket Town Association time scheduled, and a radio time. And if you think of any other stuff, let me know.
Okay.
If you think there are articles that could be explained other than the debt exclusions, let me know. Maybe, well, the Nantucket Inn is a debt exclusion, but if you think of others that you think should be explained a bit, let me know. Maybe one of you guys could do one. You did some last year, right?
Yep. Yep. Okay.
Where do these videos go? I mean, you're posting them on YouTube and then you're sharing them on Facebook?
They're on the town website.
Yeah.
And I can't remember right this second if we've actually activated our town Facebook account or not, but if we did, they'd go on there. They
It
get,
seems like where people live, people who like to talk about things. If they're on
yeah,
the web, they're probably on Facebook.
yep,
And
YouTube, I think they were on YouTube
might be worth
last year.
allocating like a couple $100 or $1,000 to sponsoring these videos. Anyway, maybe for next year. but
It's- Oh, like, what do you mean?
You can
like
boost
like
the
actually sponsoring content on Facebook is
Yep.
very inexpensive.
Yep.
And
Oh.
you can target a certain zip code. You can just have it be seen by Nantucket people, but you can
Okay.
reach. You could reach everybody we would need to reach.
Okay, I do not know about that.
You can actually, it's for $64. You can do friends of friends who are in the Nantucket community group, which would be exactly your audience.
Yeah, but we don't have money set aside for it right now. But I'm sure the IT department has ideas on that. Or who's the new public outreach